Alex Albon in 2025 is quietly having the best season in his F1 career. He has been so good that if the season was over today, he would undoubtedly be in my top 5 drivers of 2025 with the likes of Piastri and Verstappen. And yet, despite this, if you look at what the fans and media are saying online, absolutely no one is talking about just how good he's actually been. And now, that is not to say that Alex has been underappreciated throughout his career or that his achievements in the midfield have gone entirely unnoticed. But going into 2025, I think we all had the same thought, which is, how good would he actually look up against a race-winning and potentially even championship-caliber driver like Carlos Sainz? Given that F1 is so car-dependent, sometimes the only people that you can judge drivers against are their teammate. And in the case of Alex Albon, it was always very difficult to give him almost too much credit, because even though he produced countless incredible performances since returning with Williams in 2022, respectfully, the teammates that he has had weren't just mediocre drivers. They were some of the worst drivers on the grid in Nicholas Latifi and Logan Sargent. In fact, during the back end of 2024 when Sargent was replaced by Colapinto, although Franco was a little bit crash prone, I think a lot of us were very impressed with the speed that he showed up against Alex, and there is no doubt that in races like Singapore, Franco even had Alex a little bit rattled with his speed and aggression, which in my opinion was a good thing. When you only have weak drivers as your teammates, sometimes it's very easy to get complacent and be made to look better than you actually are. A rookie like Franco pushing Alex as much as he did definitely created skepticism over just how good Alex really was, but knowing that a winning driver like Carlos Sainz was coming into the team this season, all of those questions would finally be answered. And now I want to say right from the outset that Sainz has had a very disappointing season so far. In his own words, his raw pace has actually been pretty good, but a mixture of struggling to adapt to the car, reliability issues, too many incidents and poor execution from both driver and team has really turned his season into a bit of a disaster. And now Sainz's season will require its own video, but what I want to emphasize is that in praising Alex Albon, it's not about tearing down Carlos Sainz. It's simply about acknowledging how competitive Albon has been relative to a driver who we know is a multiple-time Grand Prix winner and someone who not only performed in the pressure cooker that is Ferrari, but was also very competitive alongside Leclerc. In terms of qualifying, Albon and Sainz have been identical, having outqualified each other 8 times so far this season, and even when it comes to their average qualifying position, they are also right next to each other in the standings, with Alex having the 10th best average of 11 and Sainz having the 11th best average of 11.81. With that in mind, if you compare that to their championship standings, I genuinely couldn't believe my eyes when I saw it. Because whilst Albon has scored 70 points so far this season, sitting atop of the midfield and even ahead of Antonelli in the Mercedes, Carlos Sainz finds himself down in 18th place, having scored just 16 points. That is actually one of the biggest differences between teammates on the entire grid, and Carlos Sainz is not a mug, he is a great driver. So far Alex has scored over 81% of the team's total points, which under any circumstances is total and utter domination. That is the sort of contribution that Max was making against drivers like Perez and even Alex himself at Red Bull, and it emphasizes that this season, Alex's race execution has been close to flawless. He has scored points 11 times out of 16 races, and apart from a bad run of 3 consecutive DNFs, which includes 2 back-to-back engine failures in Canada and Austria, very few drivers on the grid have maximized their car as much as Alex Albon. Right from the start of the year, Williams were very clear about the fact that they were sacrificing the 2025 season by not developing the FW47 and putting virtually all of their resources and time into nailing the new generation of car in 2026. Vowles did admit that they plan to add a few bits onto the car during the first couple of races, but the FW47's wind tunnel time came to an end back in March, and since then it has been 100% about the FW48 for 26. A huge amount of credit has to go to Vowles and how he's reshaped the technical side of the team, because the fact that Alex over the last few races has finished 7th and 5th with a car that is basically almost identical to what he had in Australia shows that Williams not only created a competitive car to start the season, but also a consistent one that has stayed competitive on a variety of different tracks. Apart from the car being inherently more competitive, in terms of the feeling in the car and what it's given to Alex, he has said, "I am comfortable in the car and I feel like the car is way more predictable to drive. It is easier to drive on the limit. We are not getting these snaps and things, which I think last year you could see sometimes would put us in a wall. It builds confidence and then you can just exploit the car more and more. I think our cars have always been quite peaky, and I've always felt that my performances have been consistent since I've joined Williams. It's maybe being highlighted now that we have a consistent car every weekend, I can do consistent performances. That is what it feels like to me." That feeling in the car of stability and predictability has been the bedrock of Albon's season. There is no doubt that last year Alex was becoming a borderline crash-prone driver, and it seemed at times that in what was clearly a very peaky car, Albon, Sargent and even Colapinto were almost dragging each other down with how many incidents they were having. However, with Alex, the underlying performance was always there, but what has been impressive is that he's been able to improve with the car this season by completely cutting out the crashes that he had last season and now scoring more points than he has ever done before. There is no doubt that the Williams, at least in the hands of Alex, is a good car, but given how condensed the grid has been this season, on any given weekend we have seen the Racing Bulls, the Aston Martin and even the Sauber be just as good. I really do not feel as though the car has been carrying Alex, especially when you look at how much Sainz has struggled to adapt to it. It's not a given that even if you put a Leclerc, a Russell or Piastri in that car, that even they would be outperforming Albon. What has made Alex's season so special is that he has always improved on his qualifying performances with even better race performances, with racecraft and execution being the absolute key. And similar to how we talk about Max in the Red Bull, Alex is leaving almost nothing on the table. The one slight oddity about his season, however, that I have noticed is that he has definitely been more vocal on the radio about strategy, and multiple times he has had heated conversations with his race engineer, often being critical towards the team. And now this can be interpreted in many ways, but I think the fact that he is delivering those results shows that perhaps with Carlos Sainz coming into the team, who is known to be one of the most cerebral drivers on the grid, I think Alex has felt almost a responsibility to also take charge and dictate the strategy when he feels it's necessary. And in that way, he has actually elevated himself this season into an even more complete driver in the car. To me this season, Alex has checked so many boxes that I just can't help but ask myself, what exactly is his ceiling and how good could he really be in a race-winning car? If we go back exactly a year ago, Carlos Sainz was winning races in a Ferrari, and at the time I said that he is a driver who, in the right car with the right teammate and under the right circumstances, is more than good enough to win a world championship, similar to how Jenson Button became champion in 2009 at Brawn. When it comes to Alex, what happened at Red Bull half a decade ago now to me is basically irrelevant. He is a completely different driver to the one he was then, and what he has shown leaves no doubt in my mind that he is a driver who is capable of being a multiple-time Grand Prix winner if given the car to do so. His future is now almost completely tied to Williams and the James Vowles project, but a small part of me really hopes that if circumstances fall into place, that he would also be an option for the front-running teams. In my mind, no one in the midfield deserves a chance to drive a race-winning car more than Albon, given everything that he has proved since returning to Formula 1. Given how competitive he has looked alongside Sainz, who we know is a top driver, he would be more than deserving of a race seat at McLaren, Mercedes or Ferrari. Although from there, all we can do is speculate as to how good he'd actually be and if he could handle the relentless pressure of driving for those top teams. I do not see why he couldn't be a multiple-time Grand Prix winner. Since coming back into Formula 1 and now going on to outperform drivers like Sainz in the same car, not only has Alex rebuilt his reputation, but he has risen to every single challenge that the team has thrown at him. And now I am not saying that Alex is good enough or will ever even be in the position to challenge for a title, because drivers like Russell and Leclerc are still waiting for their chance. But what I do think is that it will be a great shame if we never see Albon in a race-winning car again in Formula 1, because more than anyone else, I think that he is good enough to rise once again and get into that conversation with some of the best drivers in Formula 1. Well, there you have it. If you did enjoy this video and want to support the channel, then don't forget to subscribe, that would be massively appreciated, and I'll see you in the next one.